Hey, what's going on, guys? Watomarmelon back again, and today I'm going to be bringing another market watch. As always, make sure to click the eBay and TCG player links in the description below if you guys do enjoy. That is always appreciated. So we're going to start off with Arcana Triumph Joker Collector Rare. This is one of the cards that I put in my top 10 collectible cards from the past 5 years. I really love this card. You can see that its market price has come down quite a bit. Well, not a huge jump over the past year. Although it has had pretty consistent sales, and what you see is that there are only 11 listings left, and it quickly goes up from there. I mean, I think that this is a really incredible card. I think that collector rares, for the most part, if they haven't seen a reprint, and they are not likely to see a reprint in a very high rarity, for example, quarter century secret, ultimate rare, or ghost rare, I think it's pretty reasonable that this card is, going to do quite well. I think it's an incredible artwork with really nice texture, and so I'd recommend this one if you guys do enjoy the art. Next up, we've got a couple of quarter century secret rares from Rarity Collection 2. I've said it before, but these cards are just pretty underrated in general. Like, the prices just seem pretty crazy low relative to what they were. Um, and, I didn't buy all the ones that I should have. I've been a little bit lax about getting the quarter century secrets. However, Gold Sarcophagus is definitely a cool one, and it has gone up quite a bit. You can see that it started out around, it was down to $7 or so, and now its lowest listing is 11 right now, albeit it's Gamer's Choice with 42 of them. So, there's quite a bit of supply there. But, man, this is a pretty cool card, and it looks quite nice in quarter century secret. Next up, we've got Solemn Strike. This is another one that looks quite nice. I imagine there's some like playable reason. It saw some play in some decks, and that's the reason that it started to go up again. But you can see that lowest listing is around 11, and it was 650 at one point. So this thing's almost doubled in price from its low point, and there aren't many listings left. You see 23 listings, and none of those are Gamer's Choice that I can see in the first page with 40 of them. So this is a pretty cool one that I think is quite playable right now. It also has a collector rare, and that's always the risk you run, where these can get multiple high rarity printings and they all sort of compete with each other, driving down the price. But cool card, and generally, at $11, it's still not super expensive. Next up, we've got Trishula. This is one I can't remember if I bought it or not. I had it in my cart at $5 even though the market price never got down that low. There was at one point, there were copies that were around $5. Now it's up to $8 or so. Again, it's just a really cool card, and for $8 to get a shiny Trishula, I think a lot of people are willing to do that. And I think that's generally a takeaway I have from Rarity Collection 2 is a lot of these collectible cards. I get that every pack basically has a quarter century secret or so, or maybe not every pack, but you get the point. They're very frequent. But there's so many of them that the really bad ones are going to fall out quite significantly, but there are a lot of really good ones, and people are willing to pay for cool rarities of their favorite cards when they're really that cheap. This was a $5, $6 card for a while. People are going to pay that for a Trishula that looks this nice. And that's generally the approach I've had. I've started to pick up a lot of the quarter century secrets that I want for my collection because it's the thing where, I'd rather just buy it now at the current price than deal with the fact that a lot of these, think of something like Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. Glad I bought mine when it was $5. Now that's a $30 card, and it doesn't really show any signs that it's going to drop back down to $5 anytime soon. And I'd rather get the stuff while it's cheap rather than overpay. Like I had to overpay on an Exodia head. That was a, dollar, $2 card for a while. Now, it's gone up quite significantly. You'll see that. Another cool one, Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. There's a lot of this Blue Eyes stuff that very shiny Blue Eyes cards. People want that. It's above $8 right now. It was below 7, and it's seen quite the increase recently. And it's also a pretty cool card. The Starlight Rare has taken quite a beating, and we'll go over some Starlight Rares at the end. Another quarter century secret that's gone up quite a bit. This was below $5 for some time. Now the market price is around $7. Lowest listing is a little bit under 7, albeit, there are a huge number of copies of this card out there, but people are going to pay for a really shiny version of Stardust Dragon. You you just have to accept that fact that people are going to pay for this card. And I've always said that even when the supply is just astronomical, when you see something like this where people are consistently buying the card, time in and time out, uh, eventually that supply dries up. And that's what we've seen for a lot of these cards is they're just so cool and so affordable that people are going to buy them even if this card goes up to a $10 card. I think people are willing to buy a Stardust Dragon Quarter Century Secret for $10. I just can't see that not being something people will buy. Next up, we've got Exodia. This, as I said, was not the most expensive card for a while. I mean, look, I wasn't lying about this being like a $1 to $2 card. $2 right here. Should have bought it, and I was just too lazy. It went up. I was like, it's going back down. And then they announced they're printing the remaining parts of Exodia in Quarter Century Secrets so people can fill out sets. And now this is an $18 market price, albeit, the actual price is around $15. Still an enormous jump. And that's why I've just sort of locked in the current prices for a lot of the ones that I want to put in my binder. It doesn't seem reasonable to allow for these enormous jumps and have to pay that in order to complete a pretty cool set. I bought all the pieces, and I have a completed Exodia set, or I will once the remaining ones come in. But it's a little. It sucked that I had to really pay up. I forget what I paid. I think I paid somewhere on this rise. I bought it off TCG Player or eBay. I think it was through Reddit, and I think it was $10 because I got it without taxes and for a little bit cheaper. All to say that I much rather I would have liked to pay the $2. That's for sure. Next up, we are moving away from Quarter Century Secrets to a different type of card rarity that for the longest time, I mean, I don't really love these, but for the longest time, these things commanded no respect. And what you'll see is that they are starting to go up again. If you look at the yearly plot, it looks like these things have just plummeted in price, which they, were down at 65 for a while. But when you look at the near mint first edition listings that are left, double that. It's 130 for the lowest listing for Obelisk the Tormentor. So even though the market price is 80, it's much more expensive in reality. And this is a set that I don't think many people are opening up King's Court anymore. These Secret Pharaohs rares are, I think, one per case, and so they're not super available. We'll look at the other ones. You also have Ra. That one's going up. There are only 7 listings of this. One of them is an unverified seller. You have a lightly played at 95, another lightly played at around 125, and then near mint is 130. And you can see there are barely any left. And then when we look at Slifer, this one has come down a huge amount. This is, funnily enough, the most available. Typically, Slifer is the most expensive of the God cards, but this one's very available, and you have them lined up at 120. I'm not sure if the people, there was kind of a buyout, 4 items in a day, but or in a couple of days, but it doesn't seem like there was a real buyout. It just seems like there's some organic demand that's chewing these things off the market, and for whatever reason, Slifer hasn't been targeted in the same way. Maybe people locked in their Slifers a long time ago, and now are just trying to finish off the set. Anyways, very interesting set. I'm not the biggest fan of the Secret Pharaohs rare, but I know that other people are, and so I don't want to yuck their yum. It's just not for me, but clearly some people are showing some interest in these cards again. Next up, we've got the Ghost Rare Cyber Dragon. This is one that I've always been a huge fan of. You can see that sales are they're kind of ramping up in the past couple of weeks. If we switch to the 6 months again, you can see that sales are coming up. This is one that sort of ebbs and flows. It's oscillating around 40 or so. But if you look at the longer term trend, this thing was, peaked, or the lowest point was around 35. It's starting to climb back up, and when you look at the number of listings, there are only 18 listings, albeit Core TCG seems to have, I don't know why it does this where it splits them up. It seems like they have 10 total, although I don't know how true that is. And then you still have a couple of other sellers before it quickly jumps up to around 52. So there are some copies available, but this is, again, another card, albeit it's much more expensive than a lot of the Quarter Century Secrets. I think that Ghost Rares didn't get a lot of respect in Ghosts from the past too, and they're starting to, over time, people keep buying these things, and despite the huge supply of them, eventually that supply runs out because not many are being added to the market. Not a whole lot of people are opening up Ghosts from the Past 2 at this stage of the game. Albeit, super fun set to open. I mean, I cracked open a case of that with one of my friends, and the two of us were having a blast pulling Ghost Rares. It was a good time, to be honest. We actually pulled two of these Cyber Dragons, well, Voice Crack, and then then a Ghost Rare Sphere Mode, and then a Ghost Rare Dark Arm Dragon. So, really cool cards. And even though they're not, the main chases of the set, it was a lot of fun. And this is a set that I truly do like, despite the fact that it was printed to extreme amount. Next up, we've got Dragon Master Magia, Quarter Century Secret Rare, a card that defies all logic and reasoning. Over $1,000. I mean, man, I don't know what people are doing buying this thing, but I guess at this point I just have to accept I don't understand it, or that this is going to come crashing down as soon as this sort of falters. I feel like people are going to try to dump it. And I think it's going to falter as soon as there's a reprint in a lower rarity. If this gets a prismatic secret rare that's pretty available, I can't imagine that this stays at $1,000. And I think people, once it starts going down, there's going to be a little bit of an avalanche effect. The same thing that led to it spiking up to 1,000. People see the trend and then they buy into it, even though that doesn't make sense. And so it keeps going up and up. And as soon as there's some event that causes it to go down, people will try to dump it. And I just do not think that this is a reasonable price. $1,000. I mean, I just don't get it. It's a cool card. I really do like it, but I don't understand the $1,000 price point. Like, if you're a collector, there are other cards that you can get that are much cooler. And the number of cards you can get for 1,000, it just outweighs this one singular one. And if you're a Blue Eyes player, this is eventually going to get a reprint. Are you that desperate to play the? I don't think this transforms Blue Eyes into a top meta deck. It's just it's a good card and it improves the deck, but is $1,000 really worth that improvement? And are you playing this $1,000 card and then taking it from near mint to light play? I don't know. Certainly some people are, but I think a lot of people are just buying it and sitting on it and watching it go up and thinking that it's the best thing in the world, and then as soon as it comes crashing down, I don't know. I said that before and I was wrong, but usually my experience is that I'm right in the long term more often than not, but it is what it is. Next up, we've got Firewall Dragon. You can see that there was a bit of a buyout. I don't know if there was some new support released. This was always a really beautiful card. It was $7 for a while. My God. I have a playset of this. It's really, really, it's a nice card. Tripled in price, more than that. It's at $25 right now, and not a whole lot of listings left. Some people really locked in a large number of these copies, but it's a cool card. It looks really nice, and if it's playable, I can see why it goes up. Next up, we have some cards that have really come down quite significantly. We have Harpy's Feather Duster out of OTS 24 Ultimate Rare, under $20. Pretty cool card. If there weren't so many Quarter Century Secrets coming out, there's a Quarter Century Secret of Harpy's Feather Duster coming out as a promo for the early days collection or whatever. I mean, $19, it's going to have new competition. I don't know whether that will hold, and there are a number of listings. It's not like there's a handful of people at 19 before it becomes 100. There's a whole first page of people trying to sell this thing at 19. So new competition will probably drive it down even further, but Ultimate Rare Harpy's Feather Duster for under 20, that's one that I'm starting to look at. Enemy Controller, also really cool card. You can see that this thing came down to 30 something and then shot up to 50. Now this thing's $11 or so. I mean, man, that's cheap. And a very cool card. The Rarity Collection definitely hurt this card by printing it in Prismatic Collect Rare, Prismatic Ultimate Rare, and then Quarter Century Secret. But this thing has taken quite the nosedive here. But it's a beautiful card and one that, an Ultimate Rare, I might pick up. Next up, we've got Pot of Greed, Ultimate Rare, out of Duelist Pack Kaiba. Done nothing but go down in unlimited near mint. You can see that it's currently about a $40 card from a verified seller, so even below the current market price. But when we look at first edition, I believe that it also has come down quite a bit. Yeah, you can see how first edition has also really taken a nosedive. These ultimate rares from Duelist Pack Kaiba, it feels like it's so, the market is a little bizarre. It's hard to predict what exactly people are going to go after, but this is a really cool looking card. I don't own one, and maybe I will, watching this thing go down and down and down. But once upon a time, this was a really expensive card. I mean, even the yearly plot, you can see it at 160. It was well above that a couple years ago. But the Duelist Pack Kaiba cards have really taken a bit of a hit. And Pot of Greed, one of the most iconic cards in the game. We'll see where it ends up. But I love these Duelist Pack Kaiba cards, and this one has a special place in my heart. We're going to close things off by looking at Starlight rares. This is sort of where I think the trajectory of our good friend Dragon Master Magia might head. All these Starlight rares were super collectible. People loved them, said they were going to the moon, and then quarter century secret rare reprints happened, and what was once going to the moon is now a small fraction of what it once was. Here you can see that it was even higher than 460. This just goes back a year ago, and now it's around 200. You look at the actual lowest listings, it's well under 200. We're talking about, nearly 2/3 of the value lost, right? It's a huge drop, and you run the risk of that happening with Magia as well. I mean, people were saying the same things about Starlight Rares as they're saying about Magia, and it just comes crashing down because people's interests change, and then as soon as the interests change, people don't want it anymore because they start getting nervous that their surefire investment isn't actually a great investment. And so I don't know, you look at something like this or Apollosa, which came up or got hit on the ban list. I mean, 1,270 people thought this was like an untouchable modern collectible. It was, the first Starlight Rare, one of the first Starlight Rares from the first set that had Starlight Rares. It was the chase of that set. It was iconic within the modern format. And so people thought, even if it gets a reprint, who cares? It's never going to compete with this original version. And then, this one got a ban and some reprints in Quarter Century Secret of the alt art, which isn't even this art. And it's just flat, just completely been destroyed. And so this to me is indicative of the fact that a lot of the people saying, a lot of the people who hold on to this stuff are only holding on to it because they think it's expensive and because they think it goes up or is going to go up. And as soon as that becomes apparent that it won't, it just completely loses all footing. I mean, this was more expensive than Magia, and it's just come crashing down, and it presumably is going to come crashing down even more. It's not as if there's a huge number of sales recently. Market prices over, it's about $80 higher than what this lowest listing is, or $170. Yeah, I mean, there are sellers lined up at 450. The sales rate is not going to keep up with those sellers. It's hard to say that this thing will stick the landing, but we'll see. And then finally, we have Stardust Dragon. This is the one that so many people thought was, going to the moon, never coming down. And unfortunately, it has come down quite significantly. And it was 550 a year ago. It was more than that before that. Now its market price is 350, lowest listing is 325, and there are a bunch of people near that price. In fact, almost the entire front page is near that price, so doesn't look too hot for it. And if you want to know why, all it took was another printing that looked shiny. And are you really going to spend $500, $600 on that Starlight Rare if you can get a really cool looking version for under $5? I mean, I don't see it happening. And as it seems like Yu-Gi-Oh has taken this approach, or Konami has taken this approach to making collecting a much more accessible hobby, right? I bought a bunch of quarter century secret rares, and I felt like I was buying so many. I was like, oh my god, this is gonna cost me. And then I looked at the bill, and it was $100, which it's not cheap. That's real money. But given the number of cards I was buying, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to cut out like half of this card because it's gonna be like $500. And I bought a lot of cool stuff that I really wanted, and it was $100. It just, as much as I've complained about Rarity Collection, as much as I've complained about them reprinting all the Starlight rares, it's not to say that this is all bad. I mean, it does make collecting more accessible, which I think is good. But, it makes a lot of people who collected the stuff that was expensive a little bit salty, and you can sort of see why they've been led to believe that these are not reprintable cards that are collector's pieces, and they just get burned, which I've already talked about is a bad thing. But the plus side is that casual collectors and people like myself who aren't buying Stardust Dragon Starlight rares for 600 can get cheap versions that look nearly identical for much, much less. So let me know what you guys think. Click the links. Check out my channel. It's been your boy Watomarmelon. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.